We're just going to have a quick interview with Dorothy Brown. She's one of my good girlfriends, and we used to be business partners years ago in another business. And I'm so grateful that she is here today sharing what she's going to share. She's going to spill the tea. Okay? She's going to spill the tea. And I'm going to ask her the question, so she's got to give it up. And so I just want to present to some of you and introduce to others one of my good girlfriends, the clerk of the circuit court. She's been nominated, reelected 5 times. She's held this position for 20 years. Most people in politics cannot say that. So let's give it up for that person. Definitely going to spill the tea. She has been the clerk of the circuit court for 20 years. How did you manage to do that?
Very challenging. Very challenging.
I would say so.
We just simply put our nose to the grind and got the job done. And we've done a lot of changes, brought a lot of changes to the system. We're in the process of putting in a revolutionary case management system right now.
Oh, wow.
So while I was running for mayor, I was also managing this $100 million system and my information technology department, and implementing a brand new case management system, which is going to change the way we do business in the court system.
Oh, wow. I've been thinking about that too, because I'm like, you know what, you're running for mayor, you're running the circuit. How do you have time to do all of this? Like, what is your day like?
A long day starts out very, very early, but I have a great staff, it's 1,400 employees, so it's not like I have to do all this on my own. Right. And I have a great organizational structure that I put in place when I first got in office. Really mirrored what you do in corporate America, because this was my first public political office, and I came up through the private sector, so I brought those kind of skills to the office.
But why run for mayor? You're doing such an amazing job. I mean, you've held this position for 20 years. Oh, that's why. Okay. What was that run like for you?
It was a very interesting run. A lot of wonderful people in the city of Chicago. People are very passionate about what's happening especially to the educational system, which I'm very passionate about. That was the primary reason why I wanted to be mayor, to bring changes. And of course, just because I'm no longer running for mayor does not mean I will not continue to have a voice in the educational system, the economic development, and criminal justice reform in this city.
Well, I was certainly rooting for you. I'm like, say what? She got kicked off the damn ballot. What? How did that happen? Like, what happened?
Well, it's just politics. We fought to the very end. The system is very flawed. And so, I'm going to be working with ballot democracy. There's a group that's working on that, because the system is very, very flawed. You really don't know until you get into it. They have these amateurs, some of them that they actually hire right during their time of the process, making a decision as to whether or not a person is registered to vote. So you have individuals that they find their address, the person printed their name, but you may have registered to vote 20 years ago. Most people do not update their voter registration card.
That's true.
And so they're making a decision. They have a one-day, not even a one-day class in how to be a handwriting expert. And so then they're making a decision as to whether or not that signature looked like, the signature that you wrote on the petition sheet. And of course, when you're writing on the petition sheet, you're probably standing out in the cold, or you're going on the way to the grocery store, writing real fast, and that sort of thing. So we had about, 12,000 signatures that actually got thrown out.
I know. Incredible.
Does that make sense?
It does not make sense.
Doesn't make sense at all.
And why do you think, this sounds like a crazy question. I know why you would be challenged, but
I was the only major candidate that had 2 challenges.
I know, but Tony didn't let down. She really, she was just like, to the bone with this.
That's true.
Because Willie Wilson, didn't he recant? Didn't he like say, hey,
At the last minute. I mean, we had gone through, 4 or 5 weeks, so I didn't respect that at all.
Okay.
You know, you had your foot on my neck for 5 weeks, and then the day before you decided to pull it off. And then I was supposed to, think that you did something good. That didn't really mean anything to me. And Tony Park-Winkle did not withdraw her challenge, in which a lot of people were trying to get her to do so, because really let the voters decide. I mean,
sure.
I had little or no money, so what threat was I? Obviously, I was still a threat.
Absolutely.
I looked at the polls this week, even though I have $0 and still ranking in the polls. So that was the reason why they wanted me off the ballot.
Definitely. What do you plan, or you're not running now, but what's your plan for affordable housing in Chicago?
Well, affordable housing, what I was going to do, because there are a lot of aspects of affordable housing, and I wanted to have a housing czar, and that would report directly to the mayor's office, and then that individual would make sure that we looked at the developers and making sure that they actually included within any high-rise or any building that they were developing, that they actually allocated it, the affordable housing, to units within the development. We have something called the affordable housing ordinance, and I wanted to make sure that that was actually implemented, that people didn't get around it, because what they wound up doing is paying money into a fund to get around putting affordable housing into the development. I also wanted to make sure that CHA was holding up its end of the bargain, that they did not sit on, I think they were sitting on like $440 million that they had not allocated to building affordable housing units. And they had about 5,000 individuals that were on the waiting list for vouchers in Section 8. So, so we wanted to make sure that we had someone looking at all of the aspects, but within affordable housing, I wanted to also take care of the homeless. See, we don't talk about the homeless enough.
Really
we have about 80,000 people in the city of Chicago that are homeless, and no one talks about that. And homeless veterans, especially. Rockford, Illinois, actually has 0 veterans that, they have 0 homeless veterans now. They have a program there, so I wanted to look at that program to see how we could mirror that program here in the city of Chicago.
Very good. And I bet you would have brought so much transparency to Chicago corrupt politics. How did you feel when you heard the recent what was it? Jason, what's his name? I don't want to say his last name. but when you heard his sentencing, how did you feel about that? Did that affect you?
Well, it was disturbing. Mm-hmm. Of course, being the clerk of the court, I had to really be unbiased in that particular case. And Jason Van Dyke, of course, he can still appeal that case. So I can't talk too much about it because I maintain his record.
Okay.
And the young lady that polled the jury the day they had the indictment, they actually found them guilty. That was my employee.
Okay.
And so so I have to be very careful. But it just sounds it's very disturbing. And I just thought about the fact that I think it was the day before they had actually given the young man that killed Hadia Pendleton 85 years.
Oh.
And then the next day this gentleman got 81 months.
81 months or something.
So you have to look at that. Something is definitely wrong with that picture.
A lot is wrong with Chicago politics. Would you have had a plan in place to allow brown-skinned people and black people become more comfortable with the police? Is there a plan in place for that? Because, it's so much foul play, it's so much, injustice.
Well, it's about community police. Community policing is the overarching thing related to that, but also training police officers from an implicit bias standpoint. So, and helping police officers to understand the bias that's within them. Now, let me say this: we all have implicit bias because we're all in this society, and as a result, we have our implicit biases. So we have to make sure that the police officers carry guns. So their implicit bias carry huge ramifications when they approach individuals. So I wanted to start with that, and with that, in their implicit bias training, I wanted to include the community. In the training, I went to the Chicago Police Department Training Academy and actually sat in, during the time that the Justice Department was doing their review, I actually sat in with some of the people from the Justice Department on the implicit bias training that they actually had. And it was interesting that they talked about it was not mandatory, number one, and they were not intentional as it relates to how the classes were put together. In other words, they did not make sure that the classes was diverse. So everyone from a particular district, it could be all white or all black, could come to a class. And what does that mean? You're not going to have any different perspectives in that class.
No,
it has to be mandatory and it has to be intentional as to the makeup of the class. I did it when I first became clerk of the court. I had diversity training for all my staff, and we made sure that there was a diverse group that was there. And they actually played each other's roles. So you had a black person playing a white role, a white person playing a black role, so that you could kind of get an understanding of what's going on. And then the community was not involved. In other words, have some community members in the class so that you can get their perspective and they can get the police officers' perspectives. People talk about community policing all the time, but I think that police officers have to be trained to do community policing. You can't just put them out there on a bike and say, go do community policing.
They have to be trained.
Go walking on the street and go do. They need to be trained, because if you don't, if they don't understand how to approach people in the community or how to do that, then you're going to have real problems when you get when they start to do community policing or when they're in the community. The other thing too is that we have to have programs that involve the community with the police, like sports programs or town hall meetings, or things that start to. This is very difficult.
You have to bridge the gap some kind of way.
Yes.
I get that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm remembering the late, great Mayor Harold Washington. Do you think Chicago will ever see another mayor like Harold?
Hopefully we'll see even greater.
Okay.
I'm going to have hope for even greater. We have to always have hope in the city of Chicago. So I'm looking for even greater. And we can't just always put all of our hope in one person. We have to make everyone better.
Community effort.
In order to make the city better, we have to. The entire city of Chicago probably needs implicit bias training.
Today. After this interview, we're going to implement that. So, can I ask, do you know who your candidate is? Who are you voting for? We want to know, who are you voting for?
Well, I'll be endorsing someone on next week.
Oh.
Yes, I will be endorsing someone on next week.
I get liberty to say.
No.
But tell us about the candidate, can you? Like, why did you choose this particular person?
Well, actually, I've narrowed it down to 3.
Oh, Dorothy. Just confuse us, why don't you?
But I will be endorsing
because there's 100 people running, right? Everybody's running for mayor. But you really feel strongly about this person?
The people that the 3 that I have right now.
But you're going to choose one.
Yes,
you like
I'm
one more
choose
than the
one.
other
Yes,
two.
yes, I do.
And
so, the important thing for me is sincerity about getting things done, about making this city fair and equitable for all the people. That's important. And I've been on the panels with all of them. And so I've listened to them very closely, and I've interacted, and so I can tell whether or not you're surface, you're just saying words, you've learned these words and you're just saying them, and whether or not you're really passionate about what you're saying.
Okay, I got it. Well, Dorothy, I have heard so many good things about you, and I've gotten a chance to see right up personal. But would you like to dispel any rumors, anything that you may feel that's negative out there about your name?
Well, You know, it's interesting that, the media will portray you in so many different lights. And when you're in this political environment, you have to, you're going to suffer through all of those. You have to take, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, right?
That's true.
And so, that's how I look at it. But what I try to do is just continue to work hard, continue to do things right. I see I'm a CPA, and I'm also an attorney. Right. So before I went into this office, I actually decided to have certain controls in place to protect myself. I recognize the political environment in the city of Chicago, and I said, well, what are the things that generally trip politicians up here?
Yes.
Jobs and contracts. Those are the things.
Yes.
So what I put in place when I went into office was to make sure that for the Shackman exempt jobs, these are jobs that have gone through the courts where the court said that, in order for you to select someone for these jobs, you had to go by when they applied and their skills and abilities. And so I put an objective process in selecting those individuals, and then later on, I actually put that in the hands of, I had my technology staff to do a program to actually do the selection process. Nice. So the computer select individuals, and when I meet them is the day that they start. And so that was to protect me, because I knew down the road people would say that you're trying, you actually,
what is it called? Pay to play.
Exactly. So I don't even have control over the job. So how can I?
How can you?
Right. So at the end of the day, and I look at it this way: you're going to get people will lie on you and say all kind of things, but at the end of the day, you have to make sure that it's not true.
Right.
And so with contracts, what I did with contracts is that I put in place that whatever the contract is, the department that the contract is to go to, the experts in that department, they would be the ones on the evaluation committee and do the selection. Okay. And whoever they recommended after they go through the evaluation process, that's who I would sign and award the contract to. Now, I lost some friends like that. I lost some friends because they thought that I would steer contracts. But I said, I'm not going to go get in trouble for you. If you're qualified, you're going to win. Yeah. And so I put that in place too, and so that has protected me also. So at the end of the day, I wasn't worried about all these allegations because I knew the controls that I put in place to protect me. And so I said, when everything clears, it'll be fine.
It's something you say. Let me see if I can get it right. I can't be bought, and I can't.
I'm unbought and unbossed.
I love it. I love that. Oh my God! So what?
That came from Shirley Chisholm. Actually.
Oh, okay.
She started that back in, what was that, 1972 or whatever?
Yes. Great years. Yeah, I was
unbought and unbossed.
All right, cool. So what is next for you?
Well, I have just making sure that we have this major system. Right now it's the criminal side that is going in March or April. I met with my staff on last week. I meet with them. The way I manage those technology projects is that I let them get the process going, and then the closer it gets, I start to meet, either every month, once a month, where they all come in front of me. They take the consultants, the vendor, and my staff, and they explain to me what's going on. And then the closer, then I get every other week. And then when it gets closer, I meet every week. It will either be a Skype call or we in the conference room together. So they have to explain to me. See, I minored in technology when I was in college, so I have some concept of what you should be doing. Mm-hmm. And then if you can't make it make sense to me, then it's probably not happening. Right, exactly. And you're going to make it make sense to me. You're not going to use all those flowery technology words. That you're just going to make it make sense to me. And so that's how I make sure that things are going in the way that they should go. So we're working on the criminal system. See, the criminal system is very serious because it makes the difference between whether or not someone will be in prison, or not, or in jail or not. And if you don't do that paperwork right, they either can be out in the street improperly or staying in jail improperly, and both of those are wrong. So and there's so many different laws that we have to program. We have to bring we have to bring 6 million cases over, you know, because we're bringing everything over into this new system. And then you got to test it to make sure that that it's going to be done. And the interesting thing about it is this vendor that we selected, we have a front end that my staff had actually built that they do not even have. So my staff actually has a front end to permit the state's attorneys and the public defenders to actually create the order, forward that information electronically up to the judge. The judge looks at it, rules on it, and then send it to my staff electronically. They didn't even have that part, so we actually we have been building that before they got there.
Wow.
So we're going to connect that and to their case management system and have that in place for the clerk of the court.
Cool. Before we take a couple of questions, what can you tell us fun and exciting about Dorothy Brown, and how does she spend her quiet time?
Well, there's not a lot that's fun and exciting probably about me. You know, actually, mostly, you know, home. I'm a wife, and so you know, people don't realize that you know, I have to take care of home when I'm home. I have to make sure that my husband has dinner, you know, breakfast before I leave home in the morning, dinner, either prepare that before I leave or, you know, have that when I get home. A lot of times I would cook over the weekend and make sure that, you know, it's done during the week. You know, I'm a Southern girl, so so that's what I just believe in taking care of my responsibilities at home. And then I like looking at comedy, actually.
Oh, me too.
I like looking at comedy. I like basketball too, though. I played basketball in high school.
Really?
Yes.
What position?
A forward.
Jesus
Forward.
Christ.
I was the captain of the basketball team, and so I like basketball. I like LeBron James.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people don't like LeBron James, but I like LeBron James. So, you know, whatever team LeBron is on, that's my team. So the Lakers, you know, like the Lakers. I mean, you know, I'm okay with the Warriors, but you know how it goes.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you. Guys, do we have any questions? We'll take a couple of questions. Anybody have any questions for Dorothy Brown? Anyone?
What do you have against Dwayne Wade?
Who said I had something against Dwayne Wade?
He's the Chicago guy that went to Marquette.
Dwayne Wade. No, Dwayne Wade. I like Dwayne Wade. He's a nice gentleman. You know, he's probably, you know, he's at the, you know, he's at the end of his career. I actually know his mother, you know, who is a minister, and you know, she has a great church out there. I think 127th or something like that. And but yeah, he seemed to be a pretty nice gentleman and had a pretty good career. You know, I also just feel like he never really reached the pinnacle.
Yeah.
That to me, you know, and I you know, I don't watch basketball all the time, but I just felt like there was more that he could have done. Probably if he had not had the injuries that he had, he probably would have been able to do a lot more.
Probably so. Yes. Well, Dorothy, this has
Question?
been. Oh, I'm sorry.
Ben Carson, what he's doing to housing, is it going to affect Chicago? And what do you think about what he's doing to housing? What is he doing to housing?
You know, Ben Carson, who knows what Ben Carson is doing for housing? Doesn't seem to be doing a lot. He doesn't have, you know, to me, policies that really are good for the masses of the people that really are in need. And so, you know, we just have to get through these next, 2 years with the Ben Carsons and the Donald Trumps of the world, and hopefully we can make some changes. But Chicago, you know, in and of itself, you know, was not doing a good job as it relates to housing. The so-called transformation plan that occurred that displaced all of those people, and they did not replace those. They did not give them. There was not a one-for-one replacement of those properties, and you don't know where those individuals wound up going. So we have a real high housing crisis in the city of Chicago, and what Ben Carson is doing is not going to help that at all. But in the meantime, I mean, we are in the United States, so we should go for whatever funding that we need, and then properly use that funding here in the city of Chicago. There has to be an overhaul of how the Section 8 voucher program is done. It's a bottleneck for the people that are applying. It's a bottleneck for the landlords that are trying to get properties, trying to rent to people. I used to be a landlord, and that's a bottleneck in just trying to get your property on the list for people to be able to actually lease from you. And then for the poor people, the poor people that are trying to get it. I met at least 2 women in the last couple of months that have been thrown off for silly reasons, losing their vouchers, going to some hearing, losing their voucher for some simple reason. And so a lot has to be done with that. And so hopefully, that's why I wanted a housing czar that can oversee all of that, and have the mayor have someone that's specifically focused on it, because you can get so tied up into so many things if you don't have someone that's specifically focused on those areas. And the same thing for education. I think that's that we would need someone. You need someone in the mayor's office. You have a superintendent, but someone that deals with the Board of Education, Chicago Board of Education, and the city colleges, etc. They can just kind of focus directly on that and keep the mayor informed. I think the mayor, as it's organized now, really has too many people reporting to them. You should have 5, maybe 7 people reporting to you, and
delegate the rest.
And it has to go down from there. And then you have some monitoring mechanisms in place. But when everybody is reporting to you, that's a problem. Things are going to fall through the cracks.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
My question is also in regards to housing. It was rumored that they were going to try to put a price ceiling on rental units, like so that it, how some, like you go to Lakeview,
rent control.
Rent controls, and you pay so much. Certain areas are a little less. Is that still going to happen, or?
With rent control, and pretty much everybody that's running for mayor actually was in favor. They're actually in favor of some type of rent control. There's a ban on rent control. There's a piece of a law that put a ban on rent control back in the 90s. Everyone actually were actually saying that they were for overturning that ban. My position is that, to an extent, that for the units that have, let's say, 6 or more. I mean, when it's the 2-3 units, when you got some individual that's a landlord and that's their only property, you probably should not look at trying to do rent control for them, because they're just trying to pay a mortgage. But you have these large developments, you probably should look more at rent control as it relates to that. And you have to attach it to some consumer price index or inflation or something that will, so that the landlord is getting properly paid, but yet it's also appropriate for the tenant.
Yes.
I want to know, is there any effort in place to hire police officers from the community? You mentioned something about sports and something about town hall meetings, but it seemed to me if a police officer came from a particular neighborhood and these kids are in his neighborhood, I think you get a little more empathetic, and you wouldn't have to have so much training, so much diversity training, if there's a real effort to hire police officers. In other words, I'm talking about even coming up through high school, coming to high schools, recruiting kids from high school, because putting billboards up is not really bringing the neighborhood to even want to be a police officer. Right? The kids I work with don't even want to be. What effort is being put in place? So have you seen any candidates? That's who I would vote for. Someone that's kind of empathetic and really, push hard to hire homegrown talent.
Some candidates have been talking about, making sure that people within the community are a part of that particular, in that particular, just work in that particular district, diversifying the district, not just having the district to, be a certain way. I actually met with Superintendent Johnson recently, and he actually talked about that. I think that the district, I don't believe that the district should just have all the police officers from that particular, but it should be well represented, and it should be very diverse. And that's not happening
That's
right
not what
now.
I'm feeling. Like my kids are literally afraid of every officer they meet. They don't know. Kids 15, 16 years old never seen an officer from his neighborhood.
But that should be, but
And
yes, they definitely should have some
We can't
officers
even
from
identify
the
with them. So if you come to the neighborhood and say, "Oh, we got some baseball bats, we're gonna play," they don't know you, and they're not gonna mess with them. They just aren't. So, what effort would you recommend, even to?
Well, it would have to be deliberate. You have to be deliberate and intentional
Yep.
in placing, and first of all, like you said, in recruiting,
Yes.
and I like your idea of actually, having programs to influence and encourage young men and young boys and girls to actually want to be police officers, and then having, even within the school system, some kind of training towards law enforcement. So, and so that when you get out, then you're more inclined to want to. I think you have to get at least 2 years of college now.
Right. But
So program into that.
It's
almost like ROTC.
Right. One professional can influence a kid's life if they made an effort to go to the schools to talk to the kids.
But having programs similar to ROTC, but as it relates to the police department.
You have cadets, police cadets.
Exactly. So I like that idea. And then so you're training young people to actually want to be police officers. And then you have more, and also make that application process more transparent. And so that and everyone knows when it's time.
Right.
And also we have to get away from this prioritizing individuals just because my father or my mother or my sister or my brother was a police officer. My application gets pulled. My number gets pulled. And now, and because that happens a lot in the Chicago Police Department.
For sure. Yes. Okay, our last question.
Okay, I want to touch on what this gentleman spoke about, the schooling system. They used to have in the schooling system, because everybody can't afford to go to college, they would have where you could take a trade, like be a welder or just carpentry. They took all of that out of the schools. Is something being implemented where maybe they can put that back into the schooling system for the children, where they can get that hands-on training and go out with a trade, even if they can't afford to go to school because the grants and the money is just not there.
Right, exactly.
In the city of Chicago.
Everyone's talking about vocational training, and I think that we should have it in every school. There should be, a school that's dedicated to it, like CVS, those schools are dedicated to it. But I think there should be a program in every school. When I was coming up, every boy took shop. I don't know if anyone in here was a part of that era.
Home ec, shop.
We made sure we had, took home ec, whatever, back in those days. But they don't have that now. You don't have it in every school. Every school needs to have that. We didn't even talk. The school system is just at such a low quality. I think that every school should be at a magnet school level or higher. Parents should not have to compete for a few magnet school slots. Every kid deserves to have a high quality education. And if you decide to go to college or not decide to go to college, you should be able to survive. Should be able to survive in this competitive society.
That's true.
But it's
No.
It's all economics,
Cameraman's got a question.
Okay.
And a comment, sir. I asked that same question. They said the reason they don't do that is because they're worried that if you lived in the community that you served and you did your job, you're going to make an enemy that knows where your family lives and everything of the sort. So that's why they take people from outside of your community and put them somewhere else.
And I would say, I've been teaching criminal justice for 20 years. That's bullshit.
I hear you, but that's what that was the
Others-
answer I was
Other
getting.
municipalities have.
This website is about the Sexy Vegan Wine Girl. And it's everything sexy, everything vegan, everything about wine, and people who are making a difference, which is why Dorothy's on. And an entrepreneur. And
There we go. Even that. That's all. Just give me something. Anything. Any little thing.
And she's sexy. sexy. That's why she's on. Dorothy's here because she's sexy and she is making a difference in
That's what I
Chicago
needed.
politics and in the world. Any last words for us?
You know, this is a very serious election. We have to be very intentional in our decision for the next mayor of the city of Chicago. We can really shift the paradigm of the city of Chicago with this election, and so I'm going to be making an endorsement of someone. It's time for the Chicago machine to take its foot off
Yes.
of the neck of the people in the city of Chicago. We can change this. Everyone should be treated with courtesy and respect. This city has to be just and fair for everyone. We have to take it serious. We cannot roll over. And so I'm just asking people to really let's take a stand in this election and make a difference. Our children, the future of our children, that's what's at stake here.
Definitely. And don't think that your vote doesn't matter, because it absolutely does.
And absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dorothy.
Thank you.
I love you. Thank you.